Well, I watched the documentary last night for the first time, and I know you've seen it. Did you learn anything from that documentary that you did not know about Herschel Walker?
Well, I didn't know to what extent things happened in his early years, though I knew that coming from a very small town, you would think that Herschel would be so far physically superior to everybody, both in strength and speed, but actually his sister actually outran him up until her junior year in high school. I think that he had this incredible determination and drive, which I think helped him to be much stronger and also be faster, because he was embarrassed that his sister was faster than he was. You've got to remember that his sister was a sprinter that actually came to Georgia, was 1 year ahead of Herschel, and was an excellent sprinter herself. And I think that it was her that maybe helped to drive him to be even faster than what he normally was with his God-given talent.
Had you ever seen a better high school running back than Herschel Walker at the time that you were recruiting him?
Well, you know, he played in the lowest classification at Georgia, so it was sometimes, in a way, hard to evaluate him. I'll say this, that after he came to Georgia, I think that he's the best running back that I've ever seen. And what separated him, or separates him from all the rest, is that he had this world-class speed, and he really was a world-class sprinter. He had this incredible strength and size, and then even what separated him from some others, he had incredible self-discipline and mental toughness, which enabled him to get stronger and stronger each and every game as the game went on. So speed, strength, and this incredible self-discipline, which today still serves him well, because he'll soon be 50 years old, and I rather suspect he might be the best conditioned 50-year-old man in the world. And I'm confident, had he stayed 4 years, that he would have set a rushing record that nobody would have broken. Even after only doing it for 3 years, he's maybe in the top maybe 6 or 7. And the rest of them all ran 4 years. And he only did it in 3 years.
Coming out of high school, who was your main competition recruiting him? What schools were you worried about?
Well, I don't know. Clemson did a good job of recruiting him. Everybody did. He was the number 1 recruit in the country, and ironically, he was such a nice fellow that he couldn't tell anybody no, which accounted for the fact that he didn't sign until Easter time, after everybody in the country had signed. It was just difficult for him to say no. There were a lot of rumors, as you can imagine. The number 1 prospect in the country hadn't signed yet, so every day there was something in the paper, in the Atlanta paper for sure, because everybody wanted to get the scoop as to what he was going to do. And I'll give you an interesting story. When he was recruiting, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution got a tip that Johnny Robinson, or John Robinson from Southern Cal, had checked into the motel at the Hilton and was going to sign Herschel the next day. So they did some investigating, even called the hotel and asked, do you have a John Robinson there? And they said, yes, they do. Well, when they said that, they were convinced that that was it, so they said, run the story. So it was the headlines the next day that Herschel would sign with Southern Cal. As it turned out, it was a fellow named John Robinson, who was a salesman from Valdosta, Georgia, that had checked into the Hilton Hotel. So they did have a little egg on their face.
How nervous did that make you when you saw that headline?
Oh, my gosh, yeah, just constant, one after another. Another story that was interesting, and not interesting for my wife, because that was during the Easter holidays, and she was going to take the kids, who are all small. I had promised her I'd go with her to Boston, where her brother was getting his doctorate, doing his residency in oncology. And we were supposed to leave on Thursday morning early. And when it came around Wednesday night, she said, what time are we leaving? I said, Barbara, I can't go. She said, what do you mean you can't go? I said, Herschel hadn't signed. Well, she said, the heck with Herschel, a little stronger terms maybe. Who does he think he is? I said, I don't know who he thinks he is, but I can't go. So she took off by herself, and Herschel signed that Easter Sunday.
Was that pretty nerve-wracking for you to wait that long for him?
Yeah, it was. I mean, obviously, you would like to sign him early. But here's another interesting point to all of this. Herschel was the number one recruit in the country that we signed that year. We also signed somebody that was a two-time consensus All-American, that was the least recruited football player in the country. He didn't have a scholarship to any, quote, Division 1A school at the time, and that was a fellow named Terry Hogue, who ended up playing 13 years of pro ball. Nobody wanted him out of college, but in that same class, you had the most sought-after player in the country, then you had the least sought-after player in the country, and both of them were consensus All-American.
Wow. Well, I did see in that documentary where some of your assistant coaches were saying that when he got to Georgia, he had difficulty with the plays, he was fumbling the ball, he was making mistakes. When he got there, did you wonder, and in fact, even to the point where maybe they were going to redshirt him the freshman year, did you ever entertain the thoughts of not playing him as a freshman?
No, I never entertained that thought, but I knew he was going to be great. The question was how fast he was going to be great. Now, you got to remember this, too, that when he came with all of this publicity, and we had some pretty good football players there, like a fellow named Eddie Meat Cleaver Weaver, and a few other pretty good football players that was going to baptize Herschel into the Southeastern Conference. So when he carried the ball, I tell you, they went after him and knocked him pretty hard. But the beauty of Herschel was that he got immediately back up after each hit and went right straight back to the huddle, never flinched or anything else. They were going to pay their respects to Herschel as he came as a freshman because of the publicity. Now, he gained the respect of those players by his conduct. But in the ball game, which was up in Knoxville, I had another fellow by the name of Donnie McMickens that had been there 5 years, and he deserved to start. I was going to let him have 2 series, another guy 2 series, and I was going to give Herschel a chance to see if he was ready at an early age to play at this competition. And when he got in, there was no question to everybody that he was far above the other 2 backs, and he by far was the best one out there. And that's how he won the job up in Knoxville at that ball game in 1980.
When he ran over Bill Bates and scored that touchdown, what was your reaction?
Well, I didn't particularly interested in who he ran over, though later on I got to know Bill well, and they became teammates and good friends with the Dallas Cowboys. But the fact that he scored, and the fact that he scored again, he was the difference in the football game because, as you may recall, I think we were down 15-0 until Herschel appeared on the scene, and then we finally got some offense going and was able to hold and win the game.
You mentioned Donnie McMickens, and he was a senior. He was a captain, a fifth-year player. After Herschel beat him out, you kind of had to massage his ego a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah, it's tough. Here's a guy that waited. He was a heck of a back in high school. He'd waited all this time to be a starter, and here he is. He starts the game, and by halftime, he's already lost his job, and so his morale was pretty low, and it was not good for himself or the team. But I did have to visit with him and remind him, yeah, you got beat out. You got to earn up to the fact that you got beat out, but at the same time, you got beat out by one heck of a football player who, of course, went on to win a Heisman Trophy. And also, I told him that we really needed him because he was a heck of a good football player, and he actually was on every one of our special teams, and ended up being the outstanding player on the special teams that year, and the most valuable player, and also captain of the special teams. And he made some plays that could have been the difference in winning the national championship that year or not. We might not have been able to win it without him. So you're exactly right. I had to visit with him and let him face up to the fact that he got beat out, but he got beat out by no ordinary individual. and also by the fact that he could really help us and be a factor, and he bought into it, and he definitely was.